right, guys, another edition of Chat with Charlie. And finally, my co-host, Dr. Paulette Thomas-Collins is here. What's up? What's up? This is our 10th episode.
Wow. I think I've been in
three.
two
and a half, maybe.
Okay. Okay.
And then we've got Claude, Beckles, and Bobby Bonds back to join us on a great emissions talk.
Yes. What not to do. I'm excited
What
about
not to do.
What
So
not
this
to
this
do.
episode is what not to do in sales in general, but for us in our vertical would be considered emissions. All right, as we get in this first, let's do a little bit of introductions because we haven't seen my co-host in a while.
Yes.
Claude and Bobby, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about yourself and everything that you're doing, and especially Bobby Bonds, tell us everything that you're doing, especially with Aquinas. By the way, we gave you a shout out yesterday's or 2 days ago, an episode that's going to air next week on your podcast and what you're doing at Aquinas. So be looking for that. Yep.
Great.
Awesome.
So let's go, Paulette. Make sure everybody knows who you are.
All right. I am Paulette. You can call me Paulette, Mr. Bonds. You can call me Dr. P. Earlier today, someone called me my whole name, Paulette Thomas-Collins. It's a lie.
I like Diddy.
And then Charlie calls me Diddy. So whatever works for you. I'm a regional director. I oversee 5 campuses in the aviation brand. I've been with the organization about 10 years now. July, I make 10 years.
Wow.
I know.
10 years. And you started in Florida with us, right?
Yes, I started in Orlando as a campus executive director.
That's right.
And then I was promoted to regional director of marketing and admissions. And then now regional director of everything. And
Literally.
everything. And I started in admissions as an admissions rep. And I like the topic of what not to do because I was called, believe it or not, the appointment setter because I went 30 days with no shows. I thought I was going to lose my
They gave
job.
you that cancel list and said, hey, cut your teeth.
Yeah,
See
they
what
were
you
like,
can do.
hey, Paulette's setting appointments.
So how many years in admissions?
Kai's 20, should be 21. So 20, right at 20.
By the way, I'm going to give a shout out to Kai. We did an episode with her last year, and check out the Kai episode. It was a really good episode of myself, Paulette, and her daughter Kai, and check that out if you get a chance to.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's kick it over to Bobby and Claude, and please introduce yourself, those kind of things.
No, Bobby Bonds. Regardless if you're in operations or not, if admissions is working, everything's working. And if admissions is failing, everything's failing. It's kind of like the theme. Mm-hmm. So I've been in admissions and marketing for 17 years now.
Gotcha.
What's funny is today I'm fortunate enough to work with brands in Colombia, in Latin America, in Colombia, and in Spain. We have a school in Colombia. We have a school in Spain that we do admissions for. And I think what's cool about admissions is it's universal.
Interesting, yeah.
All over is really universal.
It is universal.
So that's so pretty cool. That's what I do.
I like when you say that, Mr. Bonds, because
Don't call him Mr. Bonds. You got to
Call me
call him
Bonds.
Bonds.
okay, Bobby.
I got to tell you. So what's funny is my entire career I've been always called Bobby, and now I live in South Florida where the majority of people down here are Hispanic, and Hispanics can't say Bobby. They call me Booby.
Booby Miles. Everybody knows who that is.
No, I don't.
You don't know that show, Booby Miles?
No.
Put Booby in. Put Booby in.
Oh yeah, I do know that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. What did Carrie Perez call you? She used to call me Carlitos.
I think she just called me Bonds.
Oh, okay, well, that was not funny. All right, hit us, Claude.
Yeah, I've been in this industry for about 20 years now. I used to work with Bobby in the school system in Nashville and used to met you, Charlie, in the school system in, I was in Oklahoma, and I think you were in Texas most of the time.
That's right.
But I've been doing this for a while, and Paulette and I have right now I'm the regional director of admissions for the Aviation Institute of Maintenance, and I started out as a rep. And I was thinking about this when we got off the call last time. Bobby's like, let's talk about what we did wrong. And there's 3 different phases. I started out as a rep. What did I do wrong when I was a rep? And then I became a DOA. And what did I do wrong as a DOA? And now as a regional, it's very interesting. Charlie, we were talking about when we used to be DOAs and you have to be in those meetings and you were busy doing what you had to do. And as you move up, you see now what you were doing wrong when you were the rep or the DOA. And it's very interesting watching that. So, made a lot of mistakes, but learned a lot. And now I think it's helped me when I'm talking to reps, when I'm talking to DOAs, or even if I have an opportunity, which is rare, to talk to a student as to how I can motivate them to get
Yeah.
to where
Right.
they want it.
Did you use the Rolodex, man? Did you have a Rolodex? Did you have your? I'm gonna do my
I would-
B's on Tuesday. I'm gonna do my D's on Wednesday, and move those cards forward.
It wasn't that far back, but I can remember what the training. I remember what the training was. Here's a phone.
That's
Make
it.
phone calls.
Here's a phone and a telephone book.
Right. You know,
That's exactly what I had, a
You know what I
Rolodex
mean?
and a telephone book, and I'd alternate between the white pages and the yellow pages.
That's what we did, and then we wait for Jerry Springer to come on because we knew the commercials were going to blow up, and then we get their calls coming in. So that or Sally Jesse Raphael.
right,
Ooh,
right,
you went
right.
back. That's true.
But you know what? On emissions, and I'll start out like this, and then you guys please take over. But for me, and disagree if you will too, but a rep does the same exact thing a DOA does. It's just they're doing it for themselves, where a DOA is doing it for more people. I would say a regional is doing the same thing as a DOA and rep. They're just doing it for multiple departments with multiple staff, and it keeps going up. But you're right. The interesting thing is, when you're a rep, you're looking at your DOA and be like, they don't understand, blah, 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 blah. They get so mad. And then they become a DOA and they're like, damn, now I get it. And then they start complaining about the regional. Then they become a regional and they're like, damn, now I get it. You know what I mean? So everything is the same, especially like Bobby Bonds said, no matter where you're at on the globe. It's all the same. You're dealing with humans. You're not trying to be tricky anymore. You're not trying to find that magic bullet, or they say this and then you hit them with this. They present you with an obstacle and then you got 3 things to say to get them off that obstacle so you can move down the list. Like, we're beyond that now. We just talk as humans and fill the gap on whatever their need is and how it fits with our school. But yeah, throw it out there. What do you guys got as far as things you've learned over the many years you've been doing this?
I would say what I learned that I can remember most is be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. As a new rep, my nature is not cheerleader.
It's not.
That's not my nature.
There's 100% no cheerleader in you.
Charlie.
To say.
It's not my nature. But as a new rep, I didn't know what to do. And I had senior reps next to me. And they were like, hi, so glad you called. And it was so like.
You want to throw up.
I was like, I tried it. I tried it every single day without fail, right? And I did not succeed.
Yeah.
And one day, a senior rep, she's like, Paulette, she had gotten to know me a little bit. She said, just be who you are. At that point, I didn't have anything to lose anyway. I wasn't bringing any business in. So I did. I picked up the phone, and the first person I spoke to, they came in, and I was like, oh, so I don't have to sound like that. I don't have to be so nice or salesy or fake over the phone. I literally had a conversation with them, and that was better. My show rate ended up being better because I was real with people, and I wasn't being fake or back in the day,
You're just real,
right,
authentic. But let me hit you with this though, and we've talked about this on another show. If you sit next to a high performer, the chances of you being a high performer too is likely.
That's true.
If you sit next to a dud, you're likely to be a dud.
That's true.
How does that affect you career maturity wise to still be comfortable in your own skin, to be authentic, to be yourself?
Back then or now?
Either way.
I would say back then, it caused the first level of insecurity because I thought I was doing something wrong. But then over time, and then getting a little nudge from that person who was doing well gave me some empowerment, a sense of empowerment, because I've never done it before. Fast forward to now, it doesn't matter because I won't make excuses for anybody doing less than me or better than me. Now, if you are doing better than me, then watch out because I'm coming for you, right?
You got a bullseye on your back.
Whereas if you are doing less, or if I'm leaving you behind. So I think over time you evolve based on the lessons learned, and you evolve based on your own successes and failures. And I'm okay with being authentic enough. So I failed a lot. I was not a good DOA at first. I was not a good DOA because once I became a good rep, I knew what it took. And I worked myself.
But you want people to be like you.
Right. And that's a mistake. I tried to hire people like me. That did not work. That's another mistake. Don't try to hire people that are like you.
A bunch of non-cheerleaders running around.
Man, not a non-smiling, coffee drinking, get the hell out of my way people in that department.
I gotta ask though. So you said you weren't very good at admissions at first, but obviously you're good at it.
Mm-hmm.
You've. How long do you think it took you
Good question.
to get your groove?
I think it took me a good. Now I want to say 90 days, and that's a long time because the first 30 days. And I was at Vatterott College. It was a long time ago in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's back in the day.
Around the corner from Remington College, which was a monster. That first 30 days was tough because, I kept seeing people getting walked out the door, but my work ethic was there.
Yeah.
I think that's what I know that's what saved me because he would check our phone calls. He would listen in on our calls, come sit in our interviews, and my work ethic was there. I would say the next 30 days, that 60 moment is when I started to be good. At 90-ish or so, I think I started to turn the curve. I wasn't feeling myself yet, but I started to turn the curve. So I would say around 90 days, and I still didn't learn it all, but those mistakes that I made helped me understand every day to do something different because I knew the other stuff wasn't working.
So, and I'm going to kick this over to Claude and Bonds as piggybacking on this because I think you guys can relate. Are mistakes like how you said something or what you did? Is mistakes how you conducted your day? Is mistakes paperwork and follow-up? Like, what kind of mistakes did you guys have early on when you were repping?
Well, I could see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
Bob.
Claude.
Okay.
No, you get.
My experience, Doc P, was a little bit different. My first job as a rep.
Sorry, Charlie asked the question, not Dr. P, but keep going.
But to piggyback off of what Dr. P said, like the 30, 60, 90, I came in and I had nothing but success from day one. And I thought it was
bullshit.
No,
Bleep
let me
that
finish.
out.
I had nothing but success at first. The first week, I was just like everybody I spoke to came in. And I was killing it. And I thought this was cake. Week 2, totally different.
Hit a brick
Week
wall.
3,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
totally different. And that success that I thought I had, I took it for granted because I didn't realize what it really took. And then I started realizing, well, how did those first people come in? Was it by chance? Was it lucky? What did I really say? And I had a rude awakening that I wasn't as good as I thought I was at first. Then I had to really put in that work ethic to figure out how am I going to get these people in the building, because what happened week 1 was just lucky. That was lucky.
So it's pure luck. You didn't know
that first
anything. You
week,
just
Tony,
talked to the people, and it
I
didn't
didn't
work.
know what I was doing. I just picked up a phone and just said something.
Good training
But then I
program they had
realized
back then.
There was no
There
training.
was no training.
To your point about being authentic, about being myself, I never forget the first tour that I went on. I just opened up every single door in the building and just said, let's talk about it. And then when I went to a different school system, they had this real formal training. And that's when I realized, now I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but that's when I realized when they were training me, I was like, I already do that. Oh, I already do that. And so what I did naturally and how I was comfortable being myself, I realized that this is what I do. It came naturally, and then it got, what should I say, verified when I went through a formal training that these are the things that I was naturally doing. But yeah, you have to be authentic to yourself. You have to know who your audience is. And if you're fake, if you're pretentious, if you're salesy, the students who are coming in front of you, they're going to sniff and smell that out. And they're not going to want to follow you. So I think being authentic, being real. But what I had to learn is that you got to work at it. It's a skill set, I think. Being authentic,
I listened to your story, and it's kind of interesting to me because imagine how many people are out there that didn't do good their first 90 days, but they had the work ethic and they didn't get invested in like you did. I would say that that's a mistake that I probably made, like not investing enough in the people that wanted to invest in me. I mean, because back in 2008, we had the Red Room. Mm-hmm. And if you couldn't get 2 applications in 30 days, you were out the door. There was a room, they called it the Red Room, and it had glass everywhere. And, I think the other mistake that I made, I was always pretty decent at admissions. I got an application my first day on the job. Just saying.
These guys are amazing.
I know. I'm just looking at them going, well, damn. I know this show is about what not to do, not how great you two are.
The thing that I regret the most in my career is we always had a zero tolerance policy when it came to compliance. And I regret that now because we fired some people for doing some really dumb things that wasn't intentional. Right. I think I told this story.
You did,
There was a guy that worked for me, and he literally said to this kid in passing, your student loan bill is like your light bill. It's going to come every month. And we fired that guy. Wow. And he worked for us for about 6 years. And, man, we destroyed the culture by doing things like that. You destroyed the culture by kicking people out before 90 days. And so those are the things that I regret in my career.
Can I chime in there? I think that's important that you said that, Bonds, because I also knew in that vein, we didn't have a red room, but when we scrubbed, if you had below a 50% show rate, you were gone.
Explain what a show rate is to people that may be listening that don't know. What is a show rate?
Your gross versus your net and the cancellation rate. So if you had 10 on the books and you had below a 50% show rate, 4 maybe, 6 cancels, 4 net, you were gone. That's not, you were burning leads.
It was quick.
Yeah.
The shelf life of a rep was very quick.
You were burning leads.
Yeah.
You were wasting financial aid's time because all the FAFSA were handwritten at the time. So all of that went into what effective rep was. And I appreciate you saying that was a mistake because the person who invested in me, also, I look back and I think the reason that they did is because I was open to feedback. I never once acted like I got it. I never once said, oh, no, this is going to, I always said, okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. Like I always, but that person saw that I was receptive to the feedback because I wasn't lucky.
You can sniff that out when you're a director or a supervisor or something like that.
So you have to be receptive to feedback too. Otherwise, who's gonna tell you to do something and then you tell them you got it, you don't have it, and you're still not producing.
So all three of you've got A-type personalities. You're outgoing. You speak well. You're fun.
I'm not outgoing.
Well, you're not outgoing. You're freaking rude. And you can't swim.
No, I have a lesson coming up.
But are you three special? Like, were you and I always go into the nature nurture. I mean, are good reps born that way because it's so personality related? Can you learn it over time if you can persevere? Like, how did the three of you, because the three of you went through some dark times in admissions too, right?
Sure.
I mean, we had some very bleak, frustrating, non-respect for the roles that we did for some really bad players, and some of it was warranted. How did you survive, and what did you learn from that? It's not necessarily what you don't want to do, but how did you survive and get through that for that? Like a rep watching it right now that's just frustrated. They're making a lot of calls. They can't make connections, that kind of thing. What would you say to them?
I would say it's two things. I do think that it's something innate about that you can't teach about that rep who's just great at it. I think there's something innate about some people, but I've also worked with some people who don't have that A-type personality. What they did have was a work ethic and developed a methodology as to how to use the data, use the metrics, and figure out where is his niche. And we just used to call him Superman because he was a machine. And he would come in and from 9 to 10, he did this, 10 to 11. And he developed his own system to make sure that he had enough people in front of him to get the apps that he needed. He didn't have that personality, didn't have that outgoing thing, but he was a machine. So I think some of it's just innate that you can't teach. But his thing that you couldn't teach was that work ethic. So I do think it's a little bit of both. But there was something that somebody said that, regrets, being a rep, and the only thing that I was caring about was getting that application as opposed to caring about the individual person.
Sure.
And you've evolved we all have evolved from that back in the day of doing this.
Yeah, and it's changed a lot. The other thing that changed, and you and I have talked about this, is the product. I love what I'm selling now. Do
you think the product matters?
I do.
You do?
I mean, it doesn't matter about whether or not you're going to be a good rep because you can sell. But if you're selling the product that you really believe in, like I really believe in nursing, I really believe in aviation, I really believe in the product. So I feel so comfortable selling it.
That's a good point.
Right.
So yeah, I think it does make a difference. Yep.
Yeah, I think I think that man, we today still have people that have bad days and weeks and starts,
true.
right? And you're just one call away from having the best day of your career.
That's right.
That's true.
And that's the message for them. You could have a really bad start and save it in one amazing day. So you just got to keep remembering that.
Why do you think people leave? Like in your experience, especially, being DOAs, directors of mission, which supervisor, what do you think is the main reason someone says, I just can't do this?
Well, maybe because they just can't do it.
Which is fine. That's one. So let's keep that
Right.
aside. The ones that it's just not for, they should be in another career field. Let's say that they should be good for this career field. Let's just say you've hired them, right? You've committed to them, they're
Right.
committed to you. What are some of the things, or at least maybe the leading indicators that you've seen that maybe you could say on this show that someone can say to themselves, okay, I just got to get over that hump then?
Well, admissions is not for the faint of heart. And it's not one of those jobs where you can just go to work and come home. You either love it or you hate it. We'll sniff it out very quick.
It's not no gray area.
There's no gray
You're not
area,
punching the
right?
clock.
No white space. So if you're thinking about why a person left, I'd always say I'd rather hire someone who has will. I don't want to necessarily hire someone with the skill, right? I don't want to hire a bunch of reps that have a whole bunch of experience. They have a lot of skill. I want to hire someone with the will. Will is going to take you further. And when someone quits, it's a lot of dynamics, don't get me wrong, but they lose the tenacity to present the will to do everything that's needed in admissions. So in admissions, you're going to have a bad day, right? But the will says, guess what? I finished my day with a 50% show rate. I only had one app on a run rate of 2, but tomorrow I have it set up to have 6 career planning sessions. 5 of those have confirmed, 2 financial aid. So the will in that person says tomorrow is going to be better. If I rely on someone with just pure talent and skill, it's easier for them to transition because they're resting on their laurels versus digging deep. And that's where I lie with admissions. I don't care how good you are.
No, I feel you on that. How much does a DOA impact that will?
Ooh, a lot.
Tremendously.
Number one.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
That's what I was going to say. People leave because of the culture.
Yes.
That's what I was going with. Yeah.
Yes.
Regardless of any of that, that leader is why they're leaving. And that leader is what's going to make them successful.
That's
so
true.
The DOA, we said this in the last one too. The DOA should be the number 2 person on campus.
Yes.
Number 1, that president put that person front.
That's true.
I'm going to throw another. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You got something? I cut you off.
That's the answer. The DOA
I know people disagree, but
I don't think if they truly know the job, I don't think they would.
Right. I was just about to say, we bleed admissions, right? So when people who, and I shouldn't say people, but for those that disagree, be PC here,
Right.
Admissions is the heart of a school.
Yeah.
And it is the heart that pumps the blood throughout the entire campus.
Yeah.
When we do handoffs to education
Yeah.
and financial aid and all those departments. So I believe that we are the barometer for the culture.
We
too.
are the emotional barometer.
We
too.
are.
We set the
Yep.
tone.
We really are.
Let me throw this out at you guys. So Bonds and I were at another institution together, and Bonds made me remember this. There was a guy out there named Matthew Mills, and we ran some numbers and looked at some things, and we noticed that the reps that were there, probably 3 to 6 months or newer reps, they, not all of them, but a good majority of them were outperforming the reps that had been there like a year and a half. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, if you've been doing it for a year and a half, you can get tired. I'm here in Atlanta right now, one of our best campuses, and I was talking to one of the most
campus.
talking to one of the more senior, high performing ADOAs, and just get a temp check as to how she's doing, and she's looking for a new challenge. She's a little bit bored. So now the challenge of the DOA is, how do you keep that person motivated? When we were thinking about mistakes that we made, when I first became a DOA, all I cared about was hitting my number. And when I realized I can't hit my number without my reps. So I needed to put the concerns of my reps in the forefront to make sure that they were happy.
They're the most important thing. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, if you get so caught up in your numbers and in driving your business, and we were successful at first, but how I maintained success was my reps believed in me, my reps and my I believed in my reps, and my reps know I would do anything for them. If you were performing and getting the job done, they know I would go a long way for you. And not to give Bobby some props. I remember when we were back in Nashville, the way in which these guys enjoyed working for Bobby.
Yeah.
And it creates, getting back to that culture.
It goes back to the person, the culture of that person.
Yeah, it really does, And when you put your reps first, everything else usually comes. And especially if you identify, as Dr. P says, who has the real will to want to go with you. So I think that's a big thing I learned as a DOA, is to make sure I put my reps first.
So Bonds, I know you've done online, you had a couple different institutions, and what Claude said is the culture that you provided to him was a big impact on kind of that longevity, or that. Did you learn that over time, or is that just kind of built in you, or?
That's a really, really good question. I think I got lucky that I worked at a huge call center when I first started, and I got to see what not to do. I got to see what a toxic work environment looked like, and so I just made sure I never wanted to do that. Now, I will say, when I first started out, I would celebrate everybody's birthday, and I'd celebrate every event, and I don't do that anymore. That type of culture, but to go back to what you were just saying, what's tough about people that are in this role for a little while is when they are in the role for a little while, they start to think they know better than the training they got in the beginning.
Yeah,
right.
They start having pre notions on the lead, if it's good or not. They'll start to take shortcuts in the interview, and taking those reps that were there for a year and a half and taking them back to basics is a huge help. And we do that often. I make sure that I do intro and purpose training with all my reps once a year.
That's awesome. That's a good nugget right there. That's a really good nugget right there.
Good. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned something, Claude, about bonds, and I was thinking it when you asked about people leaving. A DOA has to be a Pied Piper. I mean, they just have to be. And in leadership now, you think about it, fast forward to Gen Z and all the
emotional intelligence and all that stuff.
You have to learn. And that comes with, now I think we're in an age or in a time period where we have to educate ourselves more on how to relate to our people. We definitely have to. I'm a big reader. You have to read.
No, you don't. You listen to it. You don't read it. You listen.
It's my library, Charlie. It's my library.
She got them audiobooks going.
He just wants to share my library, Bonds. I want to share it with him.
We got a book we got to read. I need you to give me the notes.
I catch myself often telling people, I saw this article the other day. I didn't see an article. I watched a TikTok.
That's what I do too. I go home to my wife and I'll give her some news, and she's like, "I saw that same thing on Instagram," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, you got me."
So, as I was stating, let me get Charlie before I'm so rudely interrupted. You have to educate your people. You have to train your people. If you don't. And that's how I motivate people in terms. I've never been, like I said, I've never been a cheerleader, but knowledge is power. Yeah. So if I sit next to you and I say, hey, turn your screen around. Let me see your contact manager. Let me see how you manage it. Hey, I'm going to make a couple calls. Hey, you come do a tour with me. I'm going to do a tour with you. I'll be the rep. You be the student. Knowledge is power.
And game knows game.
And yes, if a rep says to me, I say, hey, take me on a tour. Well, Dr. P, can we wait until my student comes in? No, we're going to do it together because I know what you're supposed to say. The student doesn't know.
That's right.
So you have to be able to educate them, because otherwise people don't grow and they don't have a measure to say, hey, I need to do better. I need to.
That's a really good point. That's a really good. When I was out here in Atlanta, the other thing you can't forget is what it's like to be in their shoes. So you're sitting there as a regional now. You're sitting there as a VP now. You're sitting there as an owner of multiple schools now. Maybe you could forget what it's like, that grind of being that rep. And it was really nice being in Atlanta, going knee to knee with some of these guys, because it reminded me of what it was like to be you. And I had some credibility when I'm doing some trainings, when I'm talking about some things. But it's very interesting watching what they have to go through. Like, CP, that whole thing about the wig and the whirlwind. I was able to use that with the DOA.
Claude's reading.
He's on chapter 2 or 3.
He's reading.
Yeah, he's on chapter 3 right now. But you're right. I forget that a lot. It's easy to sit back.
Yeah, man.
And there's two things. One is you want people to be like you and think like you. It's just a natural thing because you've been successful, so it's hard. And then two, your maturity and your database of the history of being in missions is not the same as someone that's been doing it 6 months or a year. Right. And it's tough. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not right. I'm not saying it's right, but it's tough to be that person, especially when you're passionate about the position and things like that.
Yep.
Do you think a really, really good rep makes a good DOA?
Not all the time.
Not all the time. No, not all the time. I've had some really good reps become DOAs and whoa.
Was that a setup question,
no,
Charlie?
I just asked a question, man.
Bobby started smiling like that.
He knows what we were thinking.
Was that a shot at you, Bonds?
No, Claude, we've had one together. Ben and Charlie had one together. They had no reason. They had no business managing other people.
We'll leave it at that.
And that's okay. I think that's okay.
But you know what? That person was very comfortable in their skin too.
Yeah.
In a particular way where they knew their strengths and really made their strengths well known.
I used to always think, like, if you don't want to grow in your position, like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy, right? But there's a lot of people that get a lot of value out of hitting their goals.
Yes.
And that's their growth.
Yes.
You know, that not growing into that DOA role, but being the best on the team is what drives them.
Yes.
So you need those people. Everybody
That's true.
needs
You
them.
do. And you got to be careful what you ask for. Everybody
True.
wants to be a DOA because they think they can do it better when they get to that 1.5 year mark or something.
Right.
But then they got to manage all the personalities, all this other stuff. And they're like, dang,
Right.
I kind of liked it, but I just had to worry about myself.
Right.
Right.
We got to round this out here. So what else you got? Any good nuggets as we round it out?
No, I think that the only other thing that I'd say, and I know this is an easy thing, right? But admissions reps, we're not car salesmen. We're somebody's not buying something from us and driving off the lot and we'll never see them again. When you sit somebody in a program, you got to see them for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So you better treat them right. You better not lie. You better know that program. That's my biggest piece of advice for somebody getting into this role. They really need to know what they're doing because they got to deal with that person for the next 2 years. And if they say something they shouldn't have, they're gonna deal with that later on.
That's right. Regardless of compliance and everything, which we should all be anyways, but you just got to be a good dude or a good, girl as you're working through this because you're going to see them. You're going to see them at the grocery store. I mean, you're going to see them. So, yeah.
I would say, too, also that I've learned in admissions and a nugget for an admissions rep is it's a relationship. And as an admissions rep, you have to learn to not to burn bridges. You're going to need that financial aid officer. You're going to need a favor from the registrar. You're going to need a bursar to work with your students on payments.
You got to butter your bread.
Don't burn bridges. Understand how to talk to people. I can talk directly to Charlie. I may not be able to do that with Claude. I may have to ask Claude, how was your day? I might have to ask Bonds, how was your travel? I have to know who I'm talking to. Whereas Charlie, I can like, Charlie, I need this. He can say the same thing to me, right?
You got to be a chameleon.
You have to learn your relationship, understand the relationships that you have, foster those relationships, and work with those individuals that as you do that, it gets better and it grows and it helps you manage your business. So keep those relationships and don't burn bridges.
I would, and I've said this before, I believe the training you get in admissions will help you in your whole life. If
I agree.
You really, really listen and take a hold of it. How you communicate outside of life, everything like that.
I agree.
Would you guys all agree with that?
I agree.
100%.
It's
100%.
great life skills you learn in admissions if you're doing it for the right reasons.
Like Kai, she said, I'm the same way at home. The exact same way at home. My daughter Bonds, she says, I am the same way at home. My expectations are the same.
I'm going to hit that one more time, though, because you hit it at the beginning. And for me, this is the biggest thing that I think people make mistakes on is trying to be someone they're not.
Right.
And I'm even saying, you've got that person that, hey, they're great on Saturday when we go out and have a drink or something, but man, to work with them, I can't stand it. Mm-hmm. In admissions, I feel like you got to have the same personality always,
right?
Because you can't be you can't be non-authentic. Is that a word? You're a PhD.
Authentic.
You just made a word.
I made a word. You gave me non-authentic.
Unauthentic.
All right, Claude Bonds. What else you got? Anything else to tell us?
Don't be a jerk. That's it.
We got a sound caption for that on our next one too.
Don't be a jerk. I like
listen, think about that, Charlie. When you remember when you were a rep at first, and you used to, I used to walk around like the Terminator, like, you don't have my student package? Like, what are you thinking?
Oh, my God. Yeah, get on. Then we go into FA's office. Like, what are you doing? I need you to get this done. I don't care what you're doing. Your kid's in the hospital? I don't care. They're at the hospital. It's a good thing. Fix this.
Right. So I regret acting like that a lot because if I wasn't a jerk, I'd probably, wouldn't have been so hated.
I have more regrets personality related than job related.
Oh,
if that makes sense to you. Those for me in admissions, this being over aggressive, not controlling your emotions, just not being aware. Right. Those are my biggest things that hurt me, if you will, along the career.
But I think that the more we recognize the things that hurt us, and the maturity in our leadership right now has caused us to embrace our flaws, which allows us to give grace in those areas now and to help train others to do that. And I think that's what I've learned over our conversation. Yeah. It allowed us to show others grace, and then someone else we're paying it forward. And I think that's the beauty in what we're doing right now, because while we are being authentic and transparent, we are paying it forward to those who are growing.
That's a short right there.
Say again.
Yeah, can you say it one more time a little bit better? Can you list your flaws real quick?
Oh, I can list my flaws. No,
I'm joking.
I definitely can list
We don't have time on the show.
I'm
just joking.
Shots fired.
All right, we do got to end it. This has been great. I mean, if Bonds is up for it, if he's not traveling the globe, I'd love to keep this going, and maybe we can think of a new topic that's helpful for admissions to hear, because I consider you guys experts, a student of the game, and I think one of the things that I love about all three of you is the way you relate it verbally, and I think people can understand it, they can gravitate to it, understand it. So if you guys are cool with it, I would like to do another show and have it maybe a little bit different topic on it. Okay. But please, let's go Bonds, Claude, and then Paulette, and close us out with anything you'd like to leave the audience with.
Man, I got a tagline. Thanks for having me. And if I had to give one piece of advice, don't be a jerk. Get to know your teammates.
It's a good one.
Grade your student services. Don't be a jerk, and all will be well.
We're gonna get shirts, Mark. We're gonna make some shirts up on that. Don't be a jerk.
So, by the way, I just got some shirts made that say it's not the leads, because if I hear from
for me, I love that.
Please send me one.
Shirts. It's not the lead.
Can you send Claude one?
Yeah. Walk around the office with it.
Don't be a jerk. Okay, that's Bonds. Claude.
I would say this. I took a lot away from this, and when I listening to Dr. P talk, it made me think about myself. But I think the people that we talk to, whether they're reps, whether they're potential students, whoever it is, this guy's got some issues, and if you can let him know you're just as vulnerable as he is, that you truly care about what's going on with him. And if you're comfortable enough to be vulnerable with another human being, they will follow you. They will take your applications and they'll believe in you. And that's what I love about this. I've made
that's
a lot of mistakes.
That's a good one, man. That's deep too.
Yeah, man. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. You know some of them. Bobby knows some of them. But I've been blessed because I've surrounded myself with people that have always looked out for me because they know who I am as a person. And I'm not afraid to share my mistakes.
Well, I'm going to give you a little kudos too, because not a lot of people have this, and I think this is something that we can also add to what we learned. You're an extremely humble guy, Claude. And I don't know if this has been your whole life, but I know in the time I've worked with you, you're able to internalize some pretty tough things. Like Paulette said, I feel like I know you, so I know what I can do, and that's an impressive trait that I don't think someone can be taught. And I think and I shouldn't say it can't be taught, because I guess it could over time as you mature in your career. But being a humble person in this role and not being even a person that's been here 2 years, you may get a really good rep that comes in, has only been there 6 months, but is lights out good. There's things you can learn from them.
Right.
There's some little techniques you could learn from them.
True.
And I will say, Claude, you do have that in you. And it's pretty
Thank
cool.
you, CP.
Nah, no problem, man. No problem.
Okay.
We'll cut this out. That was just for me and you now. So we're going to cut all that from the show. But
I'm going to steal my tagline from Jeremiah because I love it. And it was from that TV show that he made me watch. Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
And if you remain curious and not judgmental about everything, whether it's work, personal life, having conversations with people, you'll build better relationships. People feel comfortable talking to you, and you'll learn a lot.
That's Ted Lasso, by the way.
Ted Lasso, that's what it was. Yeah.
I knew you were struggling for it. That's why I want to throw it out there. All right, Paulette. Close us out, Doc.
I would definitely say be authentic in everything that you do. Be honest about that. It'll allow you to build bridges and sustain relationships. And that is important in this business.
Love it.
I agree.
Well, I appreciate all three of you. I know our audience appreciates you. We're going to chop this up again and do it again. But for now, that's episode 10, guys. Chat with Charlie, my co-host, Paulette. Diddy. I didn't blow it up.
You didn't blow it up. Boom.
Claude, love having you here. Claude Beckles. And before we leave, Bobby Bonds, please give a shout out to the things that you, your brands. Give a shout out to those real quick.
Yeah. Which one? No, we have Complement Educational Careers.
Which one?
Yeah, good Lord. We got 2 schools in South Florida. We just bought our 3rd in Fort Lauderdale.
You
Yeah, we just
Congratulations, man.
I'm dead broke.
Can I pause for a second? You guys did a post. I don't know if it was you that wrote it and talked about 18 students when you first started.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
That was a really good piece.
Banging. Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations. But that was a really good piece, and I loved it. So, good job, man.
Yeah, that campus, I mean, all our programs are a year long, but that campus has about 600 students now.
So awesome.
It was 18 when I bought it. And then, we have Complement Vocational Careers. We have American Healthcare Institute, which is a nursing school in West Palm Beach. And then we have the Aquinas Network. The Aquinas Network provides services in consulting, admissions marketing, technology, and content.
Did you say accreditation too?
And consulting. We actually just brought on a chief compliance officer yesterday. So Dr. Arlette Peterson just joined our team.
Awesome.
Where Dr. Peterson's with you now, Bobby?
Yeah, cut this part out, but her non-compete ended on the 1st. So she started.
Edit that. And I say the name wrong. I'm sorry. It's I say
So I named it after Thomas Aquinas.
I love when you tell me this story.
Thomas Aquinas is the patron saint of colleges and universities, and I think highly of myself. So that's why I named it the Aquinas Network. But
thank you for being honest, Bonds.
That's obviously a joke, but I put a little Spanish twang on it and called it Aquinas instead of Aquinas.
Okay, so I'm actually saying it right. You got to give a twang. Okay, fine.
Yeah, we call it Aquinas, but it's actually named after Thomas Aquinas.
Well, I love talking to you guys. All right, that's season 10. And in the words of Bobby Bonds, do not be
a jerk.
And it's not season 10, it's episode 10. And again, don't be a jerk.
Yeah. Don't be a jerk.
Be a jerk. Be a jerk.